Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
You are welcome to Fusion Mobile e-learning platform. We are studying the subject economics, and my name is Uchenna Jacob. Today in the study session we'll be studying industrialization. Now, in the interim while we study industrialization, we'll also be looking at some other things. We're looking at things like location and localization of industries. We'll be looking at indigenization. We'll be looking at nationalization and commercialization of industries. Now, first, before we start up, what we will need to ask, what is an industry? At a particular time, we in our study session on business organizations, we defined a firm and related it to what an industry is. But in case you've forgotten, when we defined a firm, we said a firm is a unit of production that utilizes inputs to produce output for what? For different purposes. It could be for satisfaction of human wants. It could be for profit motives or satisfaction of welfare. Okay, promotion of welfare. Now, in this case, when we talk about a concentration or a group of firms that produce similar items or similar goods, we call them an industry. So an industry is a group of firms that are in the same or similar line of production and producing similar items. Now, looking at that means we could have things like what? When we talk about an industry, we could have the mining industry. The mining industry will comprise everybody or every firm that is into what? Mining. It could be coal mining, it could be iron ore mining, it could be any kind of mining, gold mining, and so on. But extraction of raw materials and keeping them in mines for processing. Then we could have the agricultural industry. Agricultural industry, we could have the transport industry, education industry. They are all a group of firms doing the same thing. For instance, when we talk about the banking industry now, the banking industry, we'll be talking about all the banks in Nigeria, UBA, Union Bank, Zenith Bank, Eco Bank, and so on and so forth. But now we talk about we now want to go into a definition of industrialization. Industrialization in itself, industrialization is the process or the practice or process or medium or method by which industries are established and concentrated at various parts of a country in order to achieve certain economic goals. Basically, the economic goals that are pursued during industrialization include development of markets, development of infrastructure, diversification of the economy, and so on and so forth. So that leads us towards strategies, because when you want to do this, there are methods, and to execute a method, you need to execute a program, you need a strategy. We have 4 strategies of industrialization. Strategies of industrialization. Strategies of industrialization, we have the import substitution. Strategy, we have the export promotion. Strategy, we have the large scale versus small scale strategy, and we have the balanced growth strategy or balanced growth strategy. Now, the first one we talk about import substitution. It is a method by which industries that will produce goods that that the industries are established to produce goods that will substitute or compete with what? The hitherto imported goods. Goods that were before imported, we established industries locally that will be producing those products. That is what you call what? Import substitution. Whereas export promotion strategy refers to establishment of more industries locally that will produce goods that will compete favorably with what? In the international market. That means they are to produce goods for what? For exportation. I mean, now, then the next one is what? The large scale versus small scale. Now, the large scale industries, in such cases, small scale industries are established to compete and encouraged to compete with what? The large scale industry, so that in cases, in areas where industries have small scale, they are encouraged, they are financed, they are encouraged to do what? To compete or to grow to the extent they become what? A large scale. Then the balanced growth strategy is the strategy of industrialization, where each sector is considered in what? In the industrialization strategy. That means that every sector of the economy is encouraged to what? To grow uniformly or at a balanced rate. And that is talking about that. Now, the next one, we talk about the problems of industrialization. The problems of industrialization, of course, in Nigeria and West Africa, there are the problems of industrialization. Industrialization in itself is bedeviled with a whole lot of issues as the developing nations are concerned. First of all is that the industrialization, in the case of industrialization, especially in Nigeria, is bedeviled with, number one, inadequate capital. Inadequate capital goes a long way, because definitely when to purchase or to get equipment that is used or to procure the necessary infrastructure, we need capital. Number two, we have inadequate infrastructural development. Certain infrastructure, we mean here we are talking about developed markets, we are talking about a power supply, we are talking about other facilities that will encourage establishment of industries. Number three, we could have what? Government policies. Government policies on establishment of certain industries vary according to the government of each region or each country. Now, this could lead to what? Where a government policy does not favor production of a particular item or a particular good or service, then that means that establishment or running such an industry would not, even a firm, would not be practicable. Number four, we talk about number four problem. We have undeveloped and inadequate markets. We have road networks, then intermittent power supply. Of course, that has been an issue that has currently made most companies move out of our country, Nigeria, to some other countries that have a continuous and uninterrupted power supply. We have the case of lack of developed skill and technology. They require inadequate skill and technology. When we talk about skill and technology, we are looking at the required labor, the required things that the laborer would need or that the industry would need, the required expertise, okay, as labor is concerned. Where it is not there, then there's a problem. Then we could have oh wow. We had this Adequate raw material. So the next thing we talk about was the lack of true entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship in most cases is looked as always money spinning, but not always. Entrepreneurship involves risk taking. Not everybody is built for what? For risk taking. The next one we are talking about, we talk about what? Lack of adequate transportation and communication networks and so on. These things that affect infrastructure, market, and all those affect rate of industrialization. The next one is talking about what? The benefits of industrialization. Industrialization yields quite a number of benefits to the society or to the country. Now, example, for instance, the first item we'll be talking about is provision of employment opportunities. Of course, when more industries are established, what happens is that there will be more opportunities for employment. There will be higher income generation, which is number 2, income generation. For instance, even to the government and to the private sector. When we talk about income generation here, the companies pay taxes, they pay profit taxes, they pay capital gains taxes. Also, the individuals working will also pay taxes to the government. The manufacturing organizations will pay excise duties. And all these come together, they become what? Revenue to the government. Now, thirdly, it speeds up the rate of economic development. For the fact that the industries are established, they have to be what? They have to be well developed in such a way that they actually encourage development, that is, increase in per capita income. Of course, when income is generated, then per capita income is what is increased, and that measures what? Standard of living. So the next one here, after increase in rate of economic development, we talk about what? Increase in the standard of living. Then, and now promotion of what? It also helps to what? To generate foreign what? Exchange. Industrialization helps in correcting balance of payments deficits. You know, where we have a balance of payment problem, like we mentioned in the other study session, that what? Import substitution helps to do what? To correct what? A balance of payment problem by what? Promoting internal production. So when we promote internally and we are able to export, what happens is that more foreign exchange is what is earned. The same thing happens when we adopt an export promotion or export drive strategy. Now, moving from there, we have what? Ways of encouraging industrialization. The ways of encouraging industrialization. Number 1 is provision of adequate infrastructure. When this infrastructure is provided, then industries will find it easier to this. Number 2 is political stability. Political stability in an economy will encourage investment, and encouraging investment will mean that there will be less crisis, and it will increase what? Establishment of industries. Number 3, provision of adequate training on true entrepreneurship abilities. You will inculcate the entrepreneurship ability into the citizens or into the individuals, such that they are going to be what? They want to be self-reliant. They will be able to produce more on their industries will be able to spring up through the springing up of firms. Then we talk about provision of what? Credit facilities. Certain industries will have to enjoy certain amount of credit for them to do what? For them to kick off. So in a case where such industries do not have credit facilities, then it serves as this. Then talking about provision of what? adequate power supply. We have another one, provision, assurance of what? Supply of adequate raw materials. Raw materials, when they are not enough, then it is a problem even in establishing and locating of industries. Now, these are things that we talk about, what? Ways of encouraging industrialization. When we go to the next one, we talk about what? Location and localization of industries. When we talk about locating an industry, it means siting of an industry in a particular place. When we say siting, it means what? Setting up an industry somewhere, okay? The siting of an industry within a particular place is what we refer to as what? Location of an industry. Then what do we consider when we want to locate an industry? As factors we consider while locating an industry. Number one is the source of raw material. The source of raw material plays a very important role in the production activities of a firm, of the industry. If the raw materials are absent, then there will not be production. Or where they have to go far to get raw materials, then there will definitely be implication on costs of production. And number two, we talk about the experience, also I meant to say the closeness, the availability of labor and factors of production. Now, where labor, you for instance, you want to establish a farm, you establish it in a farm settlement, you establish it in an urban area where people don't have the training, or where where labor is not available, then eventually that investment or industry is meant to fail, definitely. So which means if we have the raw materials, which are okay, we have the factors of production, which are labor and so on, then we'll be able to have a good startup. Then talking about the next one, we talk about climate. That's the power supply. So the next one we'll talk about, we talk about the consideration of the climatic conditions of the area. The climate plays a good role in production activities. More so when we talk about our case in Nigeria, we have an agrarian economy, that is an economy that depends on agriculture as its mainstay. Now, when we look at these things, the climate has a lot of role to play in production. Where we do not consider the climate, then we might miss the goal of location of that industry. Then the next one is the capital that will be made available, that will determine the size of the firm or the industry. The next one is the government policy on such industries, followed by the closeness to the markets, to developed markets, because definitely once production starts, the market to sell, the demand or the consumers must be considered as well. When they are not close, then there might be issues. Then the next one we talk about, which is very important, is what? Adequate power supply. In such an area, you must ensure power supply. Now, these factors impede industrialization. Therefore, it also encourages, when we consider them, they will encourage location of industry. Now, let's move to the next one. Localization of industry. Localization of industry means the concentration or building of different industries within a particular area or locality. Now, localization of industry is very important, definitely. It is actually the things that lead to what? Industrialization. When we Localization of industry leads to establishment of industrial sites or industrial settlements or industrial estates, as the case may be, and when these estates or localization of industries continue, then it becomes what it leads to achievement of the process of industrialization. Now, the next thing we'll look at is what are the advantages of localization of industries. Advantages of localization of industries. Number one, it encourages it promotes interdependence between firms. When we say localization, okay, let's say we establish schools, banks, we have farms, and so on and so forth. Now, the general whole thing, the school, financing of school could depend on banks could depend on the farms would depend on banks, and so on and so forth. Now, in such cases where these things are located, there are different firms in different industries. Where they are located in the same area, one could depend on the other. Of course, even the bank depends on school. Well, by the time the school depends on banks for finance, definitely the bank will depend on school for making what? For becoming their market. So the next thing we'll talk about there, after interdependence of firms, we have creation of employment opportunities. The localization of industry or concentration of industries in a particular area will definitely provide more employment opportunities, like we said before. Then creation of development of local labor. The existence of these things will help to develop the local skills we have by introducing them to new trends of doing things. Then provision of stability and development in the economy. When we talk about localization, we also look at the aspects where it develops. Then provision of social amenities, attraction of subsidiary companies or industries. Now, these mentioned are the various advantages of localization. But there are also disadvantages of localization of industries. Number one is that, disadvantage of localization is that, number one, it leads to competition. Two, shortage of social amenities. Three, uneven development creates development. Four, causes population explosion. Causes migration and so on. So now it can lead to it leads to competition, which in some cases can be unhealthy. Unhealthy competition will mean that it will overuse the resources within the area, and eventually the resources will not be enough. Then shortage of social amenities mean that when there's a whole concentration, then there will be there will be competition, and competition will lead to what? Different people taking different shares of the amenities that are available, and eventually it will not be enough. That is in a case where, then when we talk about what? Uneven development, meaning that industrialization may favor some aspects and will not favor some other aspects. Now, the last one is that it causes population explosion. Of course, before it causes population explosion, it first of all leads to what? Rural-urban migration. Rural-urban migration, movement of people from what? Rural areas to the industrialized regions. Now, and a continuation of this rural-urban migration will lead to what? Population explosion or population concentration in the areas where these industries are located. Now, that brings us to the end of localization and location of industries. The next point of call is the indigenization policy in Nigeria. When we talk about indigenization is a process by which indigenization is the process by which industries are transferred, or the nationals or the indigenes are encouraged to own or to establish companies within the country. Now, so the indigenization policy actually is the process through which the country or nationals are encouraged to own or to participate actively in the establishment of industry or participate actively in production activities in the economy. Now, in the case of Nigeria, the indigenization policy of 1972 was promoted by the Nigeria Public Enterprise Promotion Decree of 1972, whereby there are three phases in the military government. We have the first phase of indigenization. First phase concerns So the Nigerian indigenization policy was actually promoted by the Nigerian Enterprise Promotion Decree of 1972 and was later amended in 1977. Now, the indigenization decree was divided into three phases. The first phase reserved about 40 businesses ranging from garment making, manufacturing, up to newspaper publishing, for Nigerians to participate fully. The second phase included services and other business, of which it provided that in each case that those business owns locally, that Nigerians should have about 60% shares, and the third involved foreign investments, of which are owned by foreigners, that up to 40% of shares should be owned by Nigerians. Now, that is a summary of the Nigerian Enterprise Promotion Act, and as it was amended, Enterprise Promotion Decree, I beg your pardon, as it was amended in 1977 and as promulgated in 1972. Then nationalization and commercialization are actually two things. Now, nationalization is is actually another form of industrialization, or a case where both cases is a way by which, or is a process or process by which firms that were hitherto owned by the government are transferred in objective from what? Providing welfare services into what? Profit motive, so that there could be higher participation by others. That is commercialization. But the transfer of foreign goods, foreign owned organizations to be owned by what? The taking of foreign owned industries, organizations, and transferring them to what? To Nigerian owned or to nationals is what we call what? Nationalization. The advantages of all these concepts are the same advantages of industries and industrialization in Nigeria. So nationalization is taking over of industries from foreigners to what? To transfer them to what? National or to Nigerian owned or to the government, while the changing of what? The objective of a government owned organization or enterprise from welfare to what? Profit motive, or referred to what? As commercialization. And the last of them is what we call privatization, which is selling off or encouragement of what? Of the private individuals to buy into the what? The government-owned enterprises or public corporations, such that the private individuals now have major shares in the what? In the public corporation. With that, we come to the end of this study session now, and the questions will be rolling up on your screen in a moment. Try to make good attempt on them, and where you have issues, I'm sure when you go back to the video, you will have solutions to them.